Thank you very much, Victoria and Arlene and Liz. Thank you so much for this wonderful, comprehensive talk. Let me say I'm very moved and truly honored to be asked to speak on the memorial of comrade and friend Eamon McMahon. Before beginning my talk, I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from New York City, which is part of the traditional territory of the Lenni Lenape called Lenape-Hoking. I acknowledge the Lenni Lenape as the original people of this land, and I also acknowledge their continuing relationship with their territory. The indigenous people of the land are its past, present, and future stewards. It is important to recognize, however, that land acknowledgement is not decolonization. Decolonization is getting the land back. With that in mind, I want to quote the NTN collective on how the Palestinian struggle relates to decolonization here on Turtle Island. They write, and I quote, "Just as we fight and organize to reclaim land here on Turtle Island, our Palestinian relatives fight and organize to return to the land and for the land to return to the people." End of quote. In one of the last exchanges I had with Eamon, he asked, and I quote, "How do we keep going? How do we persevere as activists committed to freedom, justice, and dignity for the Palestinian people?" End of quote. This talk is my attempt to continue the conversation with Eamon. It is also an homage to his memory and the love and commitment he had for oppressed children, particularly in Palestine. When hearing the question, how do we keep going, the logical retort is, why would you even ask? I would like to delve into the hurdles Palestinian activists face, and will end my talk with my personal response to Eamon's important question. So one is at risk of giving up the struggle when we see that our efforts are not bearing fruit, that the Zionist state acts with impunity, continues to violate international law, and terrorizes our children, while the powers that can make the difference look on silently. Ahmad Manasra is not the exception to the rule. Instead, his case is an integral part of a vengeful and retaliatory colonial system that detains approximately 500 to 700 Palestinian children every year. The Israeli Zionist state knows what it is doing, and this is really worth repeating. The Israeli Zionist state knows what it is doing. Under the pretense of security, they force our children to live in death zones, in a constant state of terror, deprived of basic rights that allow for the healthy development of the human child. By doing so, the Israeli occupation force works to systematically crush the spirit and soul of Palestinian children, thus doing its best to destroy the future of the Palestinian nation. This settler colonial policy was described by Professor Nadira Shalhoub-Kevorkian as unchilding. Now back to Eamon's question, why would we consider giving up? When it comes to Palestine, it feels as if we live in George Orwell's 1984 novel. Any criticism of Israel is considered anti-Semitic, basically a thought crime, to use Orwell's language, as if we are forced to use newspeak, which limits our words and our ability to think critically, or else we are threatened by the thought police. Consider, for example, the Canary Mission, which Dr. Liz Berger mentioned. For those who don't know, the Canary Mission is a secretive political organization that uses its website to engage in attacks against college students, tenured and untenured faculty, who dare advocate for Palestinian rights. Canary Mission's tactics threaten students' rights to pursue an education and undermine the employment prospects of those whom the website targets by name. So, why would we feel discouraged? Perhaps because it feels that Zionism is on steroids, as Nadia Abul Hajj is quoted as saying. Consider the fact that Zionism is now espoused by evangelical Christians and Muslim Arab leaders alike. We live in an era of what McMahon called electronic colonialism, where the subject does not necessarily need to live in the metropolis of the colonial power to encounter their phobogenic self and to know the part of themselves that attracts racialized phobic hatred and anxiety. What other than denying the rights of the Palestinian people, desecrating the sacredness of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the sanctity of Jerusalem would give them the badge of a good Arab? To use Professor Hatem Bazian's terminology, a Zionist Muslim, worthy of the admiration and support of leaders such as Biden and the likes. When it comes to the Palestine liberation movement, it feels as if mainstream media is yet another occupier that should be held accountable for the damage it does. Palestinians are treated in the media as if they are not alive and are not publicly grieved, to use Judith Butler's language. Should Palestinian lives have been more grievable, there would have been an effective social policy, or at least an internationally backed resistance movement. Instead, whereas for most nations, resistance to military and settler occupation is considered by observers to be a birthright, for the Palestinian, it is a crime. So against this backdrop, how do we keep going? Well, let me share with you what my friend and colleague Yuad Ghanardi once told me about crossing the checkpoints and the humiliation that entails. She said, and I quote, "When I arrive home, I would brush the dust off my clothes, clean the mud of my shoes, smile, play music, and go on with pride and determination. This is how I keep going." End of quote. We Palestinians are formidable people. We survived over 74 years of a continuous catastrophe. Outside Palestine, we helped build nations, developed economies, and changed worlds. In Palestine itself, we continue to live, dance, sing, love, and nurture one another, while also fighting for our freedom and dignity. Although confronted daily by the most powerful army and the only nuclear power in the region that is supported by the only superpower on the planet. Ben Gurion is quoted as saying, "The old will die and the young will forget." But dear Eamon, the young have not forgotten, and the old continued their struggle until the last breath. The old did indeed die physically, but their narrations, their keys, and their homes remained. Their children, grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren have not forgotten and will not forget. They will continue to hold the torch of their ancestors and are steadfast on the path to freedom. A long walk, perhaps, But desperation is a luxury we can't afford. Freedom is the only path, and this is what we all learned from Eamon. Perhaps Israel is the strongest army in the region. And perhaps also Zionism is on steroid and the hurdles we face seem endless. However, all this has not crushed the solidarity movement. We, the Palestinians, are not alone. We are holding hands with other activists and fighters on the path of liberation, from North America to Kashmir, a mode of effective solidarity as the Kashmiri scholar framed it. The Kashmiri scholar Ether Zia framed it. Dear Eamon, I keep going because of people like you and members of France, Ireland, UK, and USA Palestine mental health networks. Individuals who witness, acknowledge, and act. I would like here to name members of the steering committees of the networks. They are individuals who support Palestine in every sense of the word. They do not hesitate to donate their time, risk attacks, and defamation. I will mention a few here alphabetically by first name, but there are many other members who work behind the scenes. Anya Hutchinson, Arlene Healy, Brooke Maddox, Carmel O'Hara, Christiane Van Duren, Christine Schmidt, David Harold, Eliana Pinto, Elizabeth Berger, Graham Lane, Guy Shannon, Gwen Daniels, Mary Jennings, Martin Kemp, Muhammad Mukhemer, Mira Matar, Rebecca Fadel, Rose Bell, and Teresa Bailey. Let me end this talk with a quote from Mahmoud Darwish. I will say it in Arabic and then in English. على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. على هذه الأرض سيدة الأرض، أم البدايات، أم النهايات. كانت تسمى فلسطين، صارت تسمى فلسطين. سيدتي أستحق لأنك سيدتي أستحق الحياة. We have on this land all of that which makes life worth living. On this land, the lady of our land, the mother of all beginnings and the mother of all ends. She was called Palestine. Her name later became Palestine. My lady, because you are my lady, I have all of that which makes life worth living.
Lema, thank you so much. That was so moving and so perfect. I can see various people clapping in the background, which you can't see, but trust me, they are.